was only joking, you know.
Yes, it was deliberate. That was deliberate, anyone watching us home.
Yes. I believe you have met... You have met before?
Yes, we've met on...
I found this lonely figure at the back. You seem to have been there for days.
Thank you, yes. Yes, we were waiting for you, ma'am, you see.
But before that...
Before that, yes.
Been searched by the sniffer dog 3 times, you know.
Yes, it's a nice dog, actually, yes. I'm taking it home with me. Anyway, the most bizarre time we met, I think, was when... I think I was probably dressed as a carrot or something rather strange like that during the Royal... It's a knockout, and I was in the Duke of York's team, and you were leading your team to victory, as I remember. And the Princess Royal was very... We were in the lead to start with, but you were very Machiavellian. You led your team extremely craftily. And we were dressed as carrots. And I can remember...
Psychological disadvantage, isn't it, really?
It was an appalling day, yes. I remember being...
It would be much worse to be a stick of celery, really, wouldn't it?
Yes, I hate celery.
You also met, of course, at the Royal Film premiere. I always wonder what you say to people in these lineups. Is that something you could never divulge, or is there a general line of chat?
It wouldn't be worth it, no.
Who are you and what is your film? Yes.
Why are you here?
Yes, why are you here? I asked you that. Which is, again, what I'm not allowed to do. There was a very nice, I must just tell you this, because there was a very nice little protocol instruction being issued by LWT for people as to how to address you. And there's a very nice thing about you should be addressed as Princess Royal or Ma'am, rhymes with spam. So I was practicing beforehand and knew I'd call you spam by mistake. So please, if I do, stop me.
I suppose you had to rhyme with royal. You'd have another problem there as well.
Yes.
How is so royal?
Quiet Scottish rugby team. Getting overexcited.
Good audience, though, aren't they?
Terrific.
Very
rugby
handy.
team. Mm.
How does Her Royal Highness rate as a film critic? Perceptive?
Yes, I mean, considering that she must see an awful lot of films, the film that I was in at the time was a private function film about the Maggie Smith and myself and a pig. Well, a pig had the starring role. And I think you stayed on afterwards and seemed to quite enjoy it and said some rather perceptive things. Viz, it's nice to know what was going on when my parents were getting married, which was, it was set exactly that period, 1947.
Have you collected any more memorable comments from members of the royal family?
Well, I did meet Prince Charles once. That was after I'd made a film called The Missionary. And we were at some sort of quiet rugby team. Put on your tartan scarf again. We were at some sort of do, and he came along and he said to me, very nice, he said, I saw your film the other day, and I was very worried at the time. It had just come out, and I was very worried about the way it was being projected and shown in films, in cinemas, because very often films are shown with rather bad soundtracks and all that. So everyone who'd said they'd seen it, I would immediately say, oh, where do you see it? You know, meaning the ABC Fulham Road. Or,
yes.
Or I'll have a word with the manager. And he said, so I said, where did you see it? So he said, oh, Balmoral. I'm not sure it's the Balmoral Odeon or the ABC.
Is Balmoral, in fact, where you've seen most of your films?
Over the passage of time, probably, yes.
And what happens? Does the Queen just get them in?
Go down the video shop.
It would be easier. And gone are the days, as they say. Yes, I mean, there are a certain number which are applied for. There's usually a plea from a member of the household for suggestions for films to be seen, because somebody's always grumbling that they're the wrong ones. Needless to say. I'm afraid they don't get many suggestions from me, but that's...
I was going to say, how on earth do you all agree, you know?
I have to admit that nowadays I really only see films when I'm asked to a premiere, which is not very many.
I thought about every other day.
Not me, really? No.
Around the World in 80 Days, that went well at the Palace, didn't it?
Yes, I heard that they'd asked for a set of the videos at Christmas, which was very nice to know. So, yes, we sent along a tape. I haven't heard whether anyone watched it or not, but they did. They demanded a set of videos and it was sent off by messenger, by pigeon, straight away.
Big pigeon.
What a long series, wasn't it?
Of course, the cameras were with you all the time on that film. So it was really like you had a taste of being a royal for a while.
Well, I mean, that was the only taste. I mean, I don't think it was the rest of it was fairly rough, I should think, you know, compared to, I'm sure, being in the Royal Yacht or something like that. But it was, I suppose, being watched all the time, which I should imagine is a sort of occupational hazard, knowing that there are people there picking up one's every little word for a while. But
little bits of every word.
it's bits of it, yes.
Talking of constant attention, is there a royal recipe for keeping cool?
No, I don't think so. I think you have to work that one out as you go along. And people have different answers to that problem.
Because when the press step over the line, as they have been known to do, you have been known also to tell them so in no uncertain terms.
That's partly because there are certain areas which I don't consider as public in the same respect as going out on an official engagement. But they naturally assume that because you're actually in public, that it is a public occasion. And the problems when I first started trying to compete seriously were obviously different. It wasn't something that they'd come across before. But again, I think it would be fair to say that the descriptions of my responses have been somewhat exaggerated, especially the tone.
And it's become less and less anyway, hasn't it?
That's because I compete less and less, but they still turn up, so...
The press always require a royal scapegoat, don't they, actually?
Appear to, and it varies, you know, it's sort of flavour of the month and who we're going to pick holes in this week, chaps. And away they go.
Your travels, and you've been on a few.
Oh, I've been on a few.
Do you collect souvenirs?
Well, I had to this time, because part of the job of the 80 days was actually to collect various things for friends of mine to prove that I'd been around the world. So I did have to collect. Terry Gilliam asked me to collect, well, first of all, he said 2 kinds of diseases, which I thought was most unfair. Some of the hotels I stayed in.
Which didn't choose?
They came on room service. But
Scottish team enjoyed that.
they did, yes. Well, they travelled a bit, they know. Yeah. Anyway, so then in the end we decided not to catch any diseases, but would I get a roof tile, a Chinese roof tile from the Forbidden City? I said, you're joking. What must I enter the Forbidden City, get a ladder, shin up, climb on the roof, get a tile and get down again.
That you did.
And live, yes. And so in the end I got a roof tile from the top of a station building somewhere, which was, there's probably a small hole in that roof anyway at this very moment, but I got back with that. It was a bit of a challenge.
Because you come home laden with trophies, man, but they're mostly given to you, aren't they? I'll say that again. Ooh.
I heard it the first time, sorry. No, you're quite right. I mean, they're not sort of things that you would go out and get as a souvenir of a trip. If you're lucky, they are usually quite good examples of local craft, but there are some rather more eccentric varieties which take up rather a lot of space as well.
Can you tell us one? I'd love to hear an eccentric, large gift.
Not so much, eccentric, yes, but also a real nuisance was 2 gazelles.
Live or?
Live.
Live, gazelles.
And the assumption that they were going to be flown in the back of the aircraft straight back to England. And as no cloven-footed animal has been imported from the Horn of Africa for 40 or 50 years, or whatever it was, this didn't go down very well with me, and nobody bothered to tell them. And then they were so afraid of upsetting the donors that they didn't tell them either. And these 2 gazelles arrived, courtesy of some airline at Heathrow, and were jolly nearly shot on the runway because they shouldn't have been there. Then they were persuaded to take them to Paris, where the same thing nearly happened. And they eventually ended up about 3 days later in the game park in Nairobi.
Imagine being on a plane with a gazelle. We're just waiting for 2 gazelles, then we'll be taken. I was once given an armadillo. Have you ever been given an armadillo? I was in Texas.
They're quieter.
Well, yes, this was actually, this was dead, which is why I asked. Before I was given it. It's a stuffed armadillo, and they have tails that go right up like that. And you can't package them, you cannot wrap them. So you have to just put them under your arm and have a great tail and little, what I can only term rude bits. This was obviously caught in a moment like that. And so I had to carry this, you know. And I was entering LaGuardia Airport, clutching this thing, and someone said to me, "Where'd you get that?" I said, "Oh, I was given it as a present in Texas." And they said, "Oh, that's what they give people in Texas."
Your latest project, Michael, is inspired by your great-grandfather, I believe.
Yes, yes.
Tell us.
Well, I mean, briefly, my great-grandfather was an Oxford Don in the 1860s, and I found in a diary of his that he'd gone on a walking holiday in Switzerland when he was in middle age, and he was sort of bachelor, about to be head of his college. And there he met two American ladies, one his own age and one about 17. And to cut a long story short, he married the 17-year-old, gave up his job at Oxford. Well, quiet. Married, the word marry gets them going, you know. He married the 17-year-old, and I mean, he couldn't stay as a Don at Oxford. You were not allowed in those days to be married and a Don. So he gave up his career for love, and I thought this was an interesting story, especially as I'd seen it actually written down in his own hand in a diary about how he'd met them and this lovely girl he'd met and all that. So I sort of made a story out of it, which is what I'm doing.
For television?
No, it's for cinema.
Oh, big,
yes,
big screen.
For the Balmoral
Epic.
Odeon, yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, big screen.